Welcome, and thank you for joining me. It's frustrating to open up a beautiful old document and not find your ancestor's name written. This tutorial is designed to explain how, despite the fact that your ancestor isn't listed in the field books, you can still figure out the plot of soil he lived on. The field book entries are filled with easily overlooked hints, and I'm going to teach you how to recognize some of them. Once you can identify the plot of land your ancestor lived on, it's then easy enough to input the numbers into the field book translator and learn more about your ancestor's life. Before you begin, there are a couple things you're going to want to have on hand. First, make sure to download the PDF located on the field book translator page in order to begin sketching the geographical features of your townland. To do that, you're also going to need a pen or pencil or something else to write with. And finally, you'll need a copy of the field book entries for your townland. So, to outline what it is that we're going to be talking about in our lecture today, we're going to use online mapping platforms to learn the lay of the townland. We're going to define its boundaries. And we're going to do these two things primarily using the mapping platform on Ask About Ireland and how it incorporates Google Maps. Third thing is we're going to sketch the townland. This is where the downloaded PDF comes into play. You'll actually be putting pen to paper for this section. Fourth, we're going to start to think like evaluator. Just on first inspection, we can start to identify different soil qualities in our townland. And the final thing we're going to be doing is comparing our work with what is written in the field books. So to begin, we're going to start thinking about the basic geography of your townland. Where is it located? Think about its setting. Is it nestled deep in the mountains, on the seacoast, or in the middle of the bog? Are there any bodies of water or rivers nearby? Are there any prominent hills or valleys located in the townland? The reason we ask these questions is because oftentimes these geographical features are mentioned in the field book notes. Then we're going to start thinking about the boundaries of our townland. The first thing we're going to do to determine the boundaries of our townland is open up an internet browser. In the URL bar, we're going to type www.askaboutireland.ie. Once the home page is loaded, we're going to scroll down to the bottom of the page and click the link for Griffith's valuation. Then, move the cursor up and click on Griffith's Places. From here, we're going to follow steps 1 and 2. Click on Place Name, and I'm going to type in the townland of Barrysbrook. And confirm that. Then step 2, the county is Offaly. If I scroll down the page, I find Kings County, now called Offaly. With those 2 steps complete, I'm going to click the search button. The search returns one townland name, one placeland name, and I'm now going to click on the larger map view. Once this window loads, I'm then going to bring the cursor up to the top left part of the screen and switch from map to satellite view. And this is going to matter in a minute when we make the transition from historical map to modern map. Once we've done that, bring the cursor to the bottom right-hand side of the screen and zoom in. So, this is the townland of Barrysbrook right here. That's the boundary. What I'm going to do now to get a sense of the lay of the land and where the boundaries fall on a modern map is I'm going to slide this bar towards modern map. And you'll see that we get a sense now of the surrounding geography while also being able to see the townland boundaries. Using Google Earth, I've superimposed the townland boundary of Barrysbrook in County Offaly on a 3D rendering of the area. From this perspective, it's easy to identify 6 prominent geographical features in the townland. First of all, we can see that the northern half is bogland. That's what all that brown area is. Second, there's a rounded hill in the south. Way in the southern portion, you can see there are some tan-colored fields in that area. The flank of Crowhon Hill in the west. So in the western portion, just right below the bog, you have some hill land there. Number 4, a road bisects the town in the south, really splitting in two. No rivers or noteworthy bodies of water are in this town, which makes it a little bit more challenging when we get into the field books, but we can overcome that. And finally, the central eastern portion of the townland is flat. So now we're going to actually start to draw it out. Using the PDF download and a pen and paper, what we're about to do is not in any way dissimilar to what the valuators did in each townland that they visited. So you can see here, I've put side by side a cutout of what Barry's Brook looks like using the Ask About Ireland mapping feature, and I've started to sketch out the boundaries of the townland myself on the right. You can see I've drawn in the boundaries and I've drawn in the road. This is an approximation. I'm not an artist, obviously, but it just needs to give us a general idea of where things fall. Now we're going to start to add in geographical features. You can see that I've drawn in the bog portion in the north, and the boundary of the bog, again, is pretty approximate. Crowhon Hill is located in the west, with its flanking slopes coming down, and finally that smaller hill in the southern portion of the townland. The last thing we're going to do with our sketch here is we're going to draw in where your ancestors' holding fell. And in order to find this, you can use the tenement valuation and the corresponding maps that are available on askaboutireland.ie. So now we're going to play the role of the valuator in our townland. We've identified the geographical features, and we're going to start to think about the value. So to think about value, we want to consider really what it meant at this time. Land that was of high value is easy to labor for man and horse, which means that there aren't any large stones or obstacles on the land that would cause any problems for a horse or men trying to work that land. The land is naturally dry. Crops have a difficult time growing on land that is wet. And finally, this land is easily accessible. It doesn't matter how perfect the wheat land is if it is 10 miles off of the road where it can't be accessed. Because by the time that you've loaded up your crop into the wagon and brought it down, you're exhausted or some of it may have spoiled along the way. High quality land yields high quality crop of a high quantity with high frequency and a valuable crop. So, land that yields 3,000 pounds per acre of wheat is more valuable than land that yields 3,000 pounds per acre of rye, because wheat is a more valuable crop than rye. So now we're going to take stock of our townland. We're going to look at areas that are of high value, areas of medium value, and areas that are of low value, considering what value means in this context. So right off the bat, we're going to look at low value areas. We know that bogland, in particular, is of low value because it's naturally wet land, and most crops are not well suited to be grown on bogland. So on my drawing or on my sketch, I'm going to include the word poor there. Going on, we're going to think about what types of land in this townland of Barry's Brook could be considered medium value land. Generally speaking, land that would be on a hillside would present some obstacles to labor, but the land itself would probably be pretty good. So we're going to call the land that falls on the side of Crowhon Hill and on that hill in the south medium quality land. And finally, we're going to think about where the good land is left. So we know that the poor land is in the north, medium land in the west and in the south. That leaves that flat, that plain area in the middle that we could consider to be good land. The next step we're going to take here is we're going to compare what we have found in our sketch of the townland with what is in the field books. All right. So this is the field book entry for the townland of Barry's Brook. We can see 17 plots that are labeled there in that left column. Remember, in the townland valuation, plots were determined not by who lived on them, but by soil quality. So we can see now that we're going to identify terms that indicate low value. And as you can see appearing in red, those terms would consist of poor or cold, moory ground, as is the case in plot number 5. In plot 13, moory ground. In 15, poor, moory, reclaimed, boggy land. And finally in 17, the worst of all, dry, burnt, bad, heathy pasture. So next, let's identify terms that identify medium valued land. These terms appearing in blue, as is the case in plot number 1, knolly, shaly, rocky ground. In plot 2, shallow. In 4, cold, clayey soil, cold soil in general. In plots 8 and 9, surface uneven and steep shallow. In 10, part shallow, steep, and exposed. And in 11, knolly. So generally speaking, what we're reading is that any plots of land located on hilly ground have a tendency to be of a medium value. Finally, let's identify keywords, key phrases, and terms that indicate good value or high valued land. All right, appearing in green, we see the words light in plots 1 and 2, friable in 3, friable light in 7, and then again in 8, and light. Land that is lighter is easy to work. So now what we're going to do, considering that data, we're going to think about how the rate per statute acre corresponds with the value terms of the land. So generally speaking, there's a relatively consistent range of value for poor land, medium land, and good land. Poor land averages, or the range for poor land is about, 6 pence up to about 10 shillings per statute acre, 10 or 11 shillings. From there, medium land ranges between 10 shillings up to about 18, 19, or 20 shillings per statute acre, and good land is anything above that. If we look at the bottom of this slide, we can see how these two plots of land, despite the fact that they are both friable, light, clayey, and sandy arable, the fact that one of them is located on an uneven surface causes the overall value of the land to drop. So what we're going to do now is, considering these different plots and their values, we're going to place them onto the map that we drew of Barry's Brook. Starting off, we know that the poor areas of land are located up on the bog. Plot 13, if we remember correctly, there were a couple deficits with it, but the text indicated that it was right on the edge of the bog. 5 was the same. There was some exposed land there. Then we mark off the medium land. We can see that this land is more situated off to the west in the south portion of the townland. In the case of plot 11 and plot 9 and plot 4, they are all on the edge of the hill. Then we move into the better land, the good quality land, at the base of Crowhon Hill, as is the case with plot number 3. 7, falling into that plain. 8, the land is far more even there. 12, and 13. So we can conclude now that despite the fact that the plots in the field books don't include names, by thoroughly understanding the geography of your ancestors' townland, you can go pretty far in making deductions as to what type of soil your ancestor farmed. From there, you can then input those average rate per statute acre numbers into the field book generator. Thank you so much for joining me.